100,000 arrows per minute. The Persian war machine. Imagine you're a soldier, standing shoulder to shoulder with your comrades. Across the field, an enemy army stretches all the way to the horizon. But it's not just their numbers that terrify you, it's the sound. A low hum that grows into the buzz of a million angry hornets, getting louder and louder until it's a deafening roar. Then, the sun disappears. And this isn't some fantasy epic. This was the terrifying reality of facing the Persian Achaemenid Empire, an army that, according to legend, could unleash a storm of 100,000 arrows every single minute, an army led by 10,000 warriors who were said to be immortal. So how did one empire build a military so advanced, so disciplined, and so massive that it conquered most of the known world? This is the untold story of the Persian war machine. Section 1. The Architects of Empire. The Persian Empire, kicked off by Cyrus the Great around 550 BCE, didn't just pop into existence. It was forged in the fires of conquest. But to get a handle on huge territories, from Egypt all the way to India, you needed more than just a big army. You needed a new kind of army, one built on discipline, revolutionary strategy, and just overwhelming power. The Persians knew that to control an empire full of different peoples, they needed a professional, standing army that could project power across thousands of miles. This wasn't some mob of farmers handed a spear for the summer. This was a finely tuned force, organized with a decimal-based structure of companies, battalions, and divisions. At its heart were two things that struck fear into everyone they faced: the arrow storm and the immortals. The very core of Persian battle strategy was the bow. But the Persians didn't just have archers, they weaponized mathematics and terror. A standard Persian division of 10,000 men often featured a front rank of shield-bearers, the sparabera, who would plant their large wicker shields into the ground, creating a wall. Behind that wall stood the archers. Now the legend of 100,000 arrows a minute comes from the idea that thousands of archers were all firing about 10 arrows per minute. Is that number an exaggeration? Almost certainly. Modern historians and experimental archaeology suggest a rate of about 6 arrows a minute is more sustainable for a trained archer. But let's be clear. Even with more conservative numbers, we're still talking about tens of thousands of arrows raining down on you in the opening moments of a battle. The goal wasn't always pinpoint accuracy. It was psychological devastation. The sky would literally seem to fill with arrows, creating chaos, shattering enemy morale, and shredding formations before the real attack even began. The ancient historian Herodotus famously quoted a witness to the Battle of Thermopylae who claimed the Persian arrows were so numerous they blotted out the sun, a terrifying piece of hyperbole that gets the point across. Section 3. The 10,000 Immortals. Once that arrow storm had done its job, the elite forces would advance, and first among them were the 10,000 Immortals. They were the emperor's personal bodyguards and the army's premier shock troops. So, why the cool name? Herodotus tells us it came from a system that was simple, brutal, and frankly, genius. The unit was always kept at a precise strength of 10,000 men. If a soldier was killed, wounded, or got sick, he was immediately replaced. To their enemies, it seemed like they couldn't be killed, that they were truly immortal. Recruited from the best warriors across Persia, including many from noble families, these soldiers were armed to the teeth with a short spear, a sword, and a powerful bow. They were famous for their discipline and loyalty, a solid, unflinching core in the massive, diverse Persian army. They fought in huge campaigns, from the conquest of Egypt to the legendary battle at Thermopylae, earning a reputation that echoed across the ancient world. Section 4. A combined arms machine. But the real genius of the Persian military wasn't just the archers or the elite infantry. It was how all the pieces worked together in a slick combined arms strategy. It was a 4-stage nightmare for their opponents. First, the archers would pin you down and break your spirits with that terrifying arrow storm. Second, just as you were trying to recover, the highly skilled Persian cavalry, a force Cyrus the Great himself expanded, would smash into your flanks to sow chaos and cut off escape. Third, the main infantry, with the immortals at the tip of the spear, would advance on your now disoriented and weakened force. And finally, they would simply crush whatever was left. This entire machine was fueled by a mastery of logistics that was second to none. The Persians built royal roads and a network of supply depots that allowed them to move and feed these enormous armies across their vast empire, a feat that many of their enemies couldn't even imagine, let alone match. The Persian war machine was one of the most effective military forces in history, yet it's often overshadowed by the very people it conquered. If you want to see more on the great military powers of the ancient world, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from history. Let us know in the comments which ancient army we should break down next. So how do you fight an army that can darken the sky with arrows? For a long, long time, the answer was, you don't. You lose. While the Persians eventually met their match in the heavily armored Greek hoplites in the tight confines of places like Thermopylae, their military model dominated for centuries. The Persian war machine was a marvel of organization, strategy, and psychological warfare. It combined overwhelming missile power, elite soldiers, and coordinated tactics to build and hold one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. It was a superpower built not just on numbers, but on a terrifyingly effective vision of how to wage war.